Good afternoon. This is Agnieszka Beata Magdalena Rojek from Krakow. It's the 5th of July 2022, and this is my properly second recording with this beautiful device that I'm able to use right now. I made one more recording, but this is just a response to the terrorist action against me, which happened after my first recording. And fun things have started happening already. I started recording and then this recording disappeared, so I need to start again. And the recording is devoted to the subject of the law and has been inspired by the conference in St. Petersburg taking place a week ago, perhaps, or around the time. This is not a proper contribution in terms of a developed idea or a proper presentation, proper lecture, anything like that. This is just an outline of the ideas that come to my mind when I think of the law. And I'm making this recording to be in time or on time, that is to keep it in a certain closed time period. I mean, perhaps it's not closed, perhaps the lines, the delineations that mark the periods are not really lines, but rather vague, overlapping whatsoever. But just to record something now so that it could exist as the input of the idea I have in mind when I think of the law. So, Agnieszka Beata Magdalena Rojek. And when I think of the law, I think of the origin of the law. So, I mean, why do we need the law at all? Who cares? As some say. And I believe we do need the law. So, if I turn to simple thinking, then I think of a tribe. You know, some tribe. There was a tribe. And then one day the tribe decided that perhaps they need to have some rules. So, you know, don't go into my tent at night because you disturb me. And you disturb my woman. And other things like that. So there were some rules. And people agreed that they will follow those rules. And this is one line. So how do we live with with each other, or one with another? And then there's organization. So basically, well, this man is the strongest, but do we want to fight all the time to prove which one of us, or who actually is the strongest? So perhaps we can agree that this man is the strongest and he's the leader, and he doesn't need to fight to prove every day. He can lead us for some time. And then when the challenge comes and someone says, well, I am stronger, then perhaps they will fight, but in the meantime we can live. So basically this is my thinking. So there was a tribe, then they decided there would be some rules and they wanted some organization. And this is basically the establishment of the law in the simple thinking. Certainly in each law we have the implication of values. So what were really the values? Well, perhaps the values were, I want some peace of mind. And you know, if this horse belongs to me, it means that the horse does not belong to you. And perhaps you can enjoy the company of my horse when I agree to it. It means that one of the values is, if something belongs to someone, it belongs to someone and not to someone else, and is not to be taken and used without agreement of the owner. So, of course, those values can be of all the the whole hierarchy of values, and some are more important, some are less important, some are key, that is, they constitute the building block of, if you can think of it in physical terms. These are not actually physical terms. I'm using this comparison metaphorically. So if you can think in metaphors, then use it as a kind of help for understanding. But if you cannot, then just skip it, because we don't want, our freedom to be built as a big stone. That would be the end of the freedom, of course. So, as I said, there are some implications of values. And there's a lot of unexpressed and normally unexposed philosophy involved. So probably if you think again of this tribe, there are certain assumptions, ontological assumptions, which are probably not there because someone decided, now I will create a philosophical system. But someone lived and noticed that there were certain things and certain appearances, and he had the idea of what is and what is not. Definitely, it was a time when there were no. This is a time when there were no psychiatrists working on your mind, but perhaps there were those spirits moving around, and perhaps some of them were the spirits of the animals, still very strong. And perhaps they could do all sorts of things to people's minds. We don't know really. I'm not sure if such societies, such free societies still exist, such tribes. But we can say that in those rules that were built or put together to constitute the law, there was a lot of philosophy. And we can also ask ourselves about the order. So what order is it? Is it the sacred or the non-sacred order? So what do I mean by the sacred order? I mean the natural law. And it has to do with the natural sense of there being something sacred in our lives. Be it God or these can be gods of animals. If you go back again to this tribal thinking, or the sacredness of the earth that has life of her own, is actually a living organism with all those processes taking place, creating a harmony, and man living in harmony with this universe, being a matter of sacredness as well, because this is a sacred order of harmony. So all those that have the spiritual element to it, and the consideration of the sacred. And then you have the non-sacred, which are basically human agreements. So for instance, if you have the natural forest life, the woods, and obviously all those all the life there is sacred, because they live in harmony, and we call it the ecosystem. And perhaps the system is already a superimposition of the intellectual mind over the natural, but still we believe that there had been some harmony there. And then the law is that this is sacred and you are not to interfere with it. And because once you start the interference, and perhaps this is why the superimposition of the concept of system is not that bad, then everything changes. So because this is an intervention from someone from outside. And the natural harmony gets destroyed. So the sacred law would involve the element of the protection of those natural environments. The law that has this sacred constituent or philosophical basis. Now, the non-sacred law would say, well, you know, this is a great space for building a new factory, and think how much money we will earn. And these are human agreements, and the law that gives agreement to such actions for the financial reasons or whatsoever other reasons definitely belongs to the non-sacred human agreements constituting the law. Now, basically, we have the establishment of the law, and then after that we need to have the knowledge of the law, but then we have to have the understanding of the law, because you know, someone can say, well, I know the law, so what law can one know? Well, one can know the law. It is my responsibility to protect my people. Now, the understanding of the law, does it mean that you can take one person and sacrifice the person brutally for the rest, saying, I have been protecting my people? Of course, you cannot, because this is you're not understanding the law when it implies the people are free and are persons, not slaves to be treated as objects. So there's the understanding of the law, and there cannot be any contradiction between in the development of the law for specific situations or in specific cases. There cannot be the contradiction of the basic principles expressed in the fundamental axioms of the community that decides for the law. So first there's the establishment of the law, then there's the knowing of the law. So you actually know that you are not supposed to deprive someone of his or her life, and you know that you are to protect your people. And then there's the understanding of the law. So what does it mean? And then there's the question of obedience. So, you know, it actually matters to me that I have the law and I live by the law, because this is the establishment, the order, and it implies a lot. Then there's the execution of the law. So it has to do with criminal cases, for example, but not only that. And then there's the consequence of the law. Okay, we have the execution of the law, the punishments, but what's the consequence? So let's say that we have the case of abortion, and some country, some state passes the law of abortion being totally forbidden as the first hypothetical case. And then we have the situation where the person, supposing this is a closed community and we don't go into the person going elsewhere to have the abortion, so abortion is forbidden, and then it means that the person cannot get abortion legally. So what is the consequence of the law? The real life consequence. And this is one case. Now there's another case, hypothetical situation number 2. Abortion is allowed, so there's the execution of the law. And then what's the consequence of the execution of the law? And when you think of the law overall, of the creation of the law, you have to give a lot of space for all those. You need to use your imagination, your knowledge of not only your people but humanity in general, and a lot comes into it. But those points, I believe, are perhaps they are not complete, but these are very important. So there's the establishment of the law, the knowing of the law, the understanding of the law, the obedience towards the law, the execution of the law, and the consequence of the law. Now, we have the given law and the created law. So an example of the given law, excuse me for that, the example of the given law is of course all the law revealed that we have received through revelation. And the created law, well, each constitution, I guess. So I want to devote some time to the given law, the God-given law from the Old Testament, that is the Ten Commandments. But basically we need to bear in mind the order, and we need to bear in mind the relation between the two. In the end, this is a choice of the level we live on, whether we live on the human level, which is the non-sacred, the man-created law, or whether we live in this high spiritual realm, which gives us open to contact with God as huge communities, and that has to do with the given law. Of course, there are considerations concerning the giver, but one needs to bear this in mind. Then there's a hierarchy of the law, which I have already mentioned, but there are basic key assumptions, values, and ontology. One of the values can be justice. So, you need to ask yourself what law you have been creating. For instance, if we have the case of the Polish law, where we have the criminal code, and we arrive at the situation where we have the specific organizational principle in terms of the execution of the law, where it is specified that no matter the evidence, the judge can pronounce the person guilty or not guilty, innocent. So where is the justice? I mean, of course, then there are further questions concerning the reliability of the evidence, because okay, there's a lot of evidence against the person, but all the evidence is false. No, we are not talking about such situations. We are talking about the situation where the evidence is self-evident, it's true, it's complete, and the person is really a criminal person, and there are no extenuating circumstances. On the basis of the very law that we have, the judge can say the person is not guilty, even if the person is obviously guilty. So what I'm saying is that the law cannot be cannot have that kind of lack of logic in it, because it becomes self-defeating, and the corruption enters the very area where we should have non-corruption. Then we have order. And so basically what the law gives us is the order. Everything has its place. So these are roles defined. Everything has its ways. These are procedures defined. And everything has its value. So there are certain protections granted. These are the rights. There are duties, obligations. There are certain things that are non-disputable, the so-called non-disputables, and there are certain things which are sine qua non. So I call them sine qua non. Basically it goes into two categories: allowed, forbidden. These are obvious things perhaps, but when I look at the situations, not to mention my own situation, I can easily see that there's those basics are simply missing. And then there are organizing principles, security principles, that is protection, educational principles, and these are punishments. So these are some of the concepts that have come to my mind. And now let us look at the law, which belongs to the category of the sacred, the given law, and this is the God-given law. And I want to read it and then give some thought to it. And by doing this, I want to create a kind of situation where one can look at any law and try to understand better what we are really dealing with. So, the God-given law. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. And then, so this is the introduction. So this is this specific community. This is the law for this specific community. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an idol in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the fathers to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you nor your son or daughter, nor your manservant or maidservant, nor your animals, nor the alien within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them. But he rested on the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Honor your father and your mother, so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his manservant or maidservant. His ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. So this is the law. And of course there's more about the law, but this is the basic law. So let's look at it again. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. So there was a certain community. This was the Egyptian community. And there was the law, the Egyptian law. And then we have the introduction of a new law for the community. And this is the transition from slavery to freedom for that community. Now, the first law is, you shall have no other gods before me. So we can understand that there were other gods that the person could have, and indeed we know it because we know it from Egypt. You shall not make for yourself an idol in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the fathers to the 3rd and 4th generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. So this is a complex piece of law. First, we have the ban on making idols. And then there's the question, obviously, about all that has been going on in the Roman Catholic Church, which is based on this first God-given law, the 10 Commandments. Indeed, each picture of the saint, if not each picture of the God, could possibly be considered an idol. Now, what do we have here? We have here, obviously, the value. So, love is the value. And this is an overpowering value, actually, in this law. And there's also the rule of the hereditary guilt, so to say. So the children answer no matter what they do. Perhaps they can change a lot, but no matter what they do, they answer for the parents, grandparents, grandparents, and grandparents, right? The fourth generation. Or should I add one more? Next law. And of course, this is not only about love, this is also about keeping the commandments. So there's this question of the obedience towards the law. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name. So this is quite simple, but then there's the value of the name. So this creates again some standard and a law. And then there's also this idea of something has been given to you, like you can call your Lord, and now you have this privilege, and so now you have God, you have the privilege of being able to call God. Now what if you corrupt the privilege by misusing it? Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. So this is the creation of the creation of the sacred order in the in life, everyday life. 6 days you shall not 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the 7th day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you nor your son or daughter, nor your manservant or maidservant, nor your animals, nor the alien within your gates. So it needs to be pointed out here that this is the day for rest for all. So this is also the establishment of an order, and it needs to be emphasized that even animals are mentioned here. So this law actually reaches for the rights of the animals as well. And so that implies somehow perhaps this was the time of the sacred, still more than we have it today generally, where the animal participated in the sacred. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them. So this is the direct connection between the law given and the creation, and the animals actually belong to the order of creation. But he rested on the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. And this is against the law, and this is again the law. Honor your father and your mother, so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. So what do we have here? Here we have the law, honor your father and your mother. But then we have it develops, so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. So you have been given the land, and there's some relation between your parents and the land, and this is written into the law. This is the philosophy. You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal. So there's the protection of life, there's the protection of the intimacy, the intimate life between the man and the woman. And it needs to be pointed out that further on in the Old Testament it is explained what the adultery actually is. So this is not, I mean, this is when the man has sex with someone else's wife. Full stop. You shall not steal. So there's the protection of ownership. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. And the neighbor here, there's the understanding of the word as your fellow man, basically. Unless this has been added later, and perhaps first it meant only your neighbor. This is actually a very good question, but from as the dictionary teaches us, it is a fellow man. So false testimony, how important is it? So this is the protection of the truth. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his manservant or maidservant, his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. So this is not only about actually stealing, this is also about wanting to have what belongs to another. And it might have to do with the spiritual power of people. What might happen if you start wanting it? That this already creates some interference into the sacred order. And this is not a very deep reading into this, but this is, as I said, this is an outline. So basically, I believe each law that develops from the basic law written into a constitution. Constitution means that something is being created. So, if we have the constitution, the Polish constitution, this constitution creates the state. And if this constitution breaks down, then there's no state created by the very constitution. So it's important to understand what the constitution actually is. Now, if you think again of the Old Testament, what do we have here? What kind of order do we have here? We have the Egyptian law. We have the departure from the Egyptian law. And this is Judaism. And then what do we have next? We have the coming of Jesus Christ and the birth of Christianity. And what happens with Christianity? In the Old Testament, we have the exact law forbidding to consume blood. And with the teachings of the Roman Catholic Church, we understand that Jesus Christ told his disciples to create and repeat again and again as a ritual the consumption of his body and blood, which is pretty cannibalistic. But whether it's cannibalistic or not, first and foremost, it goes against the ban on blood in the Old Testament. So this is what we have in Christianity in terms of the transitions. And then we have states. So we have Poland, we have the Republic of Poland, and what happens in Poland is the creation of the law, constitution. And this is the non-sacred law. This is the created law, man-created law. This is a series of agreements, human agreements. So this is another level. And then we have the international law. So what do we have in the international law? Well, for instance, we have the ban on torture. And then we have the legal reality. That is what we are actually living in. And we have cases of the people innocent turning to the court of law, being punished with torture. So this is the kind of absurdity we have come to live in. And I believe it is very important to get oriented with regard of what we really want. Because the law is not something that can be put down as a nice framework. And really nothing but that. Agnieszka Bata, Magdalena Rojek.